Hey everyone, it's VM Campos, comic book fan. Welcome to the weekly VM Campos Comic Book Club. This is a Vodcast where I answer, what am I reading this week? For the audio-only version of the Vodcast, head on over to Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Spoiler alert, I will be going through the comic, but I won't be revealing important plot points. Make sure you buy the original and support your favorite creators. This is the series where I review a comic, new or old, in my collection, and I talk about the cover, the writing, the interior art, and the enjoyability of the book. This week I've got Red Sonja and Vampirella meet Betty and Veronica from Dynamite. Now this is continuing the trend of having a variety of Archie Comics characters meeting characters outside of their universe. Archie has been doing a very good job of this for several years. The Archie crew has met the Glee crew, the Ramones, Kiss. Betty and Veronica themselves have met Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn. And this goes all the way back to the 90s when the Archie gang met the Punisher. No joke. In this latest one, we've got Red Sonja and Vampirella going to Riverdale to meet Betty and Veronica. I got the regular cover by Faye Dalton. It shows a preview of Vampirella and Red Sonja and what they're doing in Riverdale. Vampirella is a cheerleader, while Red Sonja ends up on the football team. And then there's Betty and Veronica. I think the art is really, really good in this cover. It's realistic, it's detailed, you get great expressions, posing, that looks like Vampirella, that looks like Red Sonja. Betty and Veronica are a little bit different because there's either the version of the Riverdale TV show that you're used to, or the version of classic Archie comics, and they look a little too realistic for that style, but they look like their style in real life. And it's a nice stark white background. They're in the locker room. So I got the regular cover. I give this 5 out of 5. I love that it's so detailed and realistic, and it captures the characters really well. Look at that little bat on Vampirella's foot. Okay, so what's this book about? As I said, it's Red Sonja and Vampirella meeting Betty and Veronica. What else is there to say? Actually, there's a lot, because our creative team is writer Amy Chu, artist, so the interior artist, Maria Sanapo, and colorist, Vinicius Andrade. Letterer is Taylor Esposito as well. So this is a Dynamite book, using Archie characters as well as characters that have existed before. Red Sonja has been at Marvel. Vampirella has been at Warren, and they're both at Dynamite at the moment. And the plot is basically they have come to the Riverdale dimension because there are cult members killing people, and they're there and they're here to stop it. I don't know why Red Sonja and Vampirella are teaming up. Was there previous issues or team-ups from Dynamite that I'm not quite aware of? All that I'm aware of is that they're in Riverdale, they're at the morgue, they're trying to figure out who was the last person that got killed, and then they meet Betty and Veronica. Well, then they end up being sort of like high schoolers for a little while to sort of infiltrate Riverdale High to see what's going on, and they need to blend in. Red Sonja, the she-devil with the sword, and Vampirella, scion of Draculon. They have to blend in after they dress up in from Veronica's wardrobe. Betty remarks, "I think they look a little old to be in high school." Veronica, "Oh, Betty, they're from Europe. Everyone looks more mature over there." So there's a funny interaction where Archie meets Red Sonja. "Hey, Veronica, who are your friends?" And Red Sonja replies, "What business is this of yours, boy?" And he sheepishly, "None, I guess." At one point, Betty remarks, "That's our friend Archie, but this is our story, not his." That's funny. So the story, it's interesting. It's a mashup. Those are so hot nowadays, aren't they? Mixing one character with another, one concept with another. So I give it a 4 out of 5. It's intriguing. How do these classic strong women interact with America's sweethearts and this dark story, which the Archie comics have been dabbling in years? How does that shake out? How does that shape up with everything? So I think the story is pretty fun. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. The interior art by Maria Sanapo, I think, is very good. There's a beautiful shot of Vampirella morphing from her bat form to her humanoid form. That the angle just looks great. The shadows, the colorization look really good. The background is very detailed. There's these beautiful gradients and cross-hatching. I really like that shot. Interestingly, Red Sonja wears her classic chainmail bikini armor sort of thing, but Vampirella wears a much more modest, although very short, shorts and a sort of peekaboo top. She's not wearing her classic Draculan attire of old, but still has various accents of the original, the white collar, for example, and still very sexy. And Betty and Veronica, they look like modern versions of themselves. They're wearing modern clothing, nice expressions on them, posing, anatomy, scenery is very good. There's a shot that I also like where Betty takes a photo of Vampy and Sonja dressed in modern clothes off of her cell phone, and I think it looks really cool. They're admiring their new outfits. So the art, I really like it. I like the cover artist a little better, but this is still very solid art. 4 out of 5, very enjoyable. The overall enjoyment of the book, that's also pretty high. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I'm intrigued about what else is going to happen with the meeting of these characters. How dark is it going to get? After all, this is rated teen plus, so there is a little bit of violence, a tiny bit of gore in the book, and of course mature themes of vampirism and warriors and such. So I'm enjoying the book so far. I can't wait to get the next ones, so I'll give it a 4 out of 5. So to recap, I give the cover art a 5 out of 5, the interior art a 4 out of 5, the story a 4 out of 5, and the enjoyment of the book a 4 out of 5. Let's check out a couple of other things in the book in more detail. There's kind of a cool front piece. I don't know if this is going to happen somewhere else in the later issues, but we've got Betty and Veronica and Sonja and Vampy in a band. I see on the drum kit here, RSVBV, Red Sonja, Vampirella, Betty, Veronica. So this harkens back to the classic Archie's band. Yes, Archie had a band back in the day. They sang that Sugar Sugar song. This style here looks Robert Hack-ish. I don't think I see any signature anywhere, but it feels like Robert Hack. That R for Riverdale looks like the Riverdale R from the TV show. And again, it's interesting to see how that TV show is sort of influencing aspects of the comics. There's a sort of like no explanation about how did Vampirella and Sonja enter our dimension, or the Archie dimension, but then they start interacting right away. You, Yeoman, where does this town keep your bodies? And Vampirella, dear fellow, would you be so kind as to direct us to the morgue? Bottom of the street? Turn left, ladies. And Vampirella uses her powers to bewitch a morgue worker, and then they meet Betty and Veronica. So again, I'm not revealing the whole plot, so we'll jump to the end over here. There's a great back page about Mars Attacks, one of the most recent Mars Attacks stories, and some of this gushing over here. A cacophony of campy and comical carnage, honoring both Burton and the trading cards that burned images of Martian mayhem into our brains. Goofy, grotesque, and downright glorious. I kind of want to check it out just based on what this is, what they're saying here. And I think I've seen a little bit of art in other books, and it looks kind of really good. On the back, we've got the usual, check out all of these creators that we have at Dynamite, very nice. And then a huge cover gallery. There's so many versions of this cover. Let's look at a couple over here. A lot of these are these incentive covers. This Jay Ferguson one looks just delicious, just delectable in terms of the horror. Then we've got the classic Archie with all the ladies here, and instead of having the usual milkshake, With Betty and Veronica, he's there with Vampirella and Red Sonja. There's various virgin versions, and we go off to see even more of these covers. Let's start over here. Actually, let me back it up one more. There's so many versions of this cover. Here we go. So I have the Faye Dalton version. There's a Francavilla version, a Robert Hack version. Laura Braga's cool. She's also doing Blossom 666. Classic Dan Parent, of course. You can't have an Archie comic without Dan Parent. Cat Staggs, various black and white versions. Again, the Robert Hack one is pretty cool. It's like a movie poster for, what would that be? Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, maybe? And there's these other versions. There's these, I'm not sure why are these called remarked cover? Is it possibly that it has original marker art by Ken Haser? And then this is kind of exploitive over here. There's the Virgin White Cheerleader, then there's the Virgin Red Classic, the Virgin Red Cheerleader, and the Virgin Green Classic. So these are like the exact same comic, but then just slightly different. There's Vampirella in a cheerleader outfit, and then in her classic outfit, and then over here, this is exactly the same, just the top is different, I guess the skirt, but then they leave the same sort of collar. I think that's a little bit too, not trying hard enough. And then there's this version over here that I kind of really like. This is the Red Sonja versus Betty Street Fighter homage, and then the Vampirella versus Veronica Street Fighter homage. See, can I get a better close-up right here? So these are by Warren Lau, and I kind of want these. They look really cool. Their stats and posing, they feel like a cool video game intro scene. There's other Dynamic Forces covers. This Art Germ one is really nice. This one's kind of interesting. Peter Porker, the Spectacular Spider-Ham. This is the True Believers Marvel Tales, which they're selling for $1. But you get the signed by Tom DeFalco version for $89.99, or an intro price of $49.99. We've got some other house ads. Kiss, Blood and Stardust. I remember these covers. I really liked them. They made a nice panorama in all the 4 or 5 issues. Vampirella is 50 years old in 2019, so there's a new series of hers coming out with a bunch of covers, an Alex Ross cover, a classic Jose Gonzalez cover. This one's interesting. This is an Adam Hughes cover, which is an homage to his original Vampirella #1 from Harris of the early 90s. He's kind of redoing that cover. Interesting. Joe Jusko. I sort of feel like I don't hear a lot about Joe Jusko anymore. I would hear about him all the time back in the 90s, especially with Marvel cards, the Marvel Masterpiece Series 1. But I kind of don't hear a lot about him nowadays, or I'm not paying attention. There's another Red Sonja series. This is by Luke Lieberman and Sergio Davila. This is Birth of the She-Devil. Speaking of mashups, how about Charlie's Angels Meet the Bionic Woman? This is by Cameron DeOrdio and Sue Lee. And then I don't want to go further because the rest of the book happens right there. So actually, let me jump to something over here without revealing anything that I want to show. Yeah, we'll go right here. So there's a page over here talking to the creators of the new Vampirella series with a preview of the Alex Ross cover of the book. A new series celebrating 50 years of Vampirella. And we talked to the creators about how they're honoring the character, how they're making her a strong feminist icon, but with classic aspects, paying homage to the original artists, the Frazetta artists of the day, Ross, Connor, etc., and just bringing Vampirella to the 21st century, 50 years after her creation, way back in 1969. And so that was Red Sonja and Vampirella Meet Betty and Veronica. Pretty enjoyable book, great art, interesting story. I recommend it. If you liked this Vodcast, don't forget to head on over to iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, etc., and search for the podcast there. This has been the weekly VM Campos Comic Book Club, and I'll see you next week.